We have these equations. All three of these equations are equations of lines, but they are written in standard form, which means ax plus by equals c. We want to graph the line, and the directions say that the method we want to use this time is to find the slope and the y-intercept. In other words, let's write these as y equals mx plus b. So if I want to write this as y equals mx plus b, I need to get the y by itself. And yesterday we learned to do that. Step number 1 is to always add or subtract the x's to move the x's to the other side first. So here I have 4x. It's a positive 4x. So I'm going to subtract 4x. What I do to one side of the equal sign, I do to the other. Then what we have left over on the left side is just the 2y. And then I have a choice. I could write negative 6 minus 4x, or I could write negative 4x minus 6. But I want the x's first because I'm trying to force it to look like mx plus b. So I'm going to choose to put negative 4x and then the minus 6. Okay, the last step is to get rid of the number in front of the y. And when a number and a letter are side by side, that's multiplication. So to get rid of multiply by 2, I'm going to divide by 2. What I do to one side, I do to the entire other side. So I'm underlining the entire other side by 2. Now this 2 got rid of that 2, so y is now by itself. But this 2 goes to both. So if it goes to both, negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, and they are x's. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Okay, I'm just putting negative 4 over 2, which means negative 4 divided by 2, and negative 6 divided by 2, which is negative 3. Now that I've written it in y equals mx plus b form, let's remember that the number in front of x is your slope, and then the number at the end is your y-intercept. So identifying those, my m, my slope, is negative 2, and then the y-intercept is negative 3. Okay, we're using this to graph our line. There are many ways that you can graph. Plotting points is always a fallback plan, like pick a number, plug it in, get an answer. But my recommendation is to think of graphing a line as the M stands for move and the B stands for begin. So begin specifically on the y-axis. So if I'm going to begin on the y-axis at negative 3, I'm going to put a dot right there at negative 3. Then from that spot, I don't know why students want to go back to 0, 0. That's my beginning spot at negative 3. From that spot, I'm going to use this to move. And I'm sure you've all heard slope referred to as rise over run. I can't see the fraction right now, but every number that's not a fraction, I can put that over 1. So I'm going to put this negative 2 over 1 to make the rise and run stand out. Now, when you rise, my options, it's like a helicopter, not an airplane. Rise is going up or down. Positive is up, negative is down. And then running, positive is right, and negative is left. So from this spot, I'm going to rise negative 2. You're thinking helicopter, so that's down 2. Run positive 1. So running is right and left, and positive is right. Okay, so I'm going to so starting, see how I'm going right on top of the green dot at negative 3? So rise negative 2, down 1, 2, run positive 1, right 1, and now I have everything that I need to draw in my line. So I'm going to grab a line, and I'm just making a quick sketch, so this line is definitely not perfect, but it's right about there. Okay, so let's look at 2 more examples. All right, first thing we want to do is get the y's by itself. So you want to add or subtract to move the x's to the other side. So I need to move this 6x, and it's a positive 6x. So I'm going to subtract 6x. What I do to one side, I do to the other. So what I have left over here on the left-hand side is negative 2y. So I've got negative 2y. And on the right side, I want the x's and then the numbers. So I put negative 6x first, and then the minus 4. Okay, then the last thing here I want to do is get this y by itself, and right now it's getting multiplied by negative 2. So I'm going to divide by negative 2. What I do to one side, I do to the other. So the y is by itself. Now let's put this negative 2 to both. So negative 6 divided by negative 2 is positive 3. So I'm going to have 3x. And negative 4 divided by negative 2 is positive 2. The number in front of x is my slope, so 3. The number at the end there is my y-intercept. Using that same idea, I'm going to begin on the y-axis at 2. So I'm going to put a dot on the y-axis at 2. And then from that spot, I'm going to move using the slope. And that 3 is over, whoops, see, there we go. That 3 is over 1. So I'm going to, okay, so notice I'm right there at 2. I'm going to rise 3, so that's helicopter. Positive is up, 1, 2, 3. Run 1, positive is right. And now that I have my 2 points, I can connect the dots, and I've drawn my line. Okay, last example. You don't need, I don't know how many examples you need to write down in your notes. This last one, you might want to just have the first 2 in your notes and then just watch to make sure you have it down. Okay, so in this first one, what's the first thing you should do? Anybody know what's the first thing I should do? See how the first thing was subtracting 4x? Yeah.
Add 2x.
Perfect, add 2x. And that gets my x's to the other side, okay? So I still have negative 4y there. Now should I write the 2x first or the negative 4 first?
2x.
2x, okay, so I'm gonna put the 2x first. Okay, now the next thing I wanna do, somebody have the next step?
Divide by negative 4.
Awesome, you are right. Divide by negative 4. What I do to one side, I do to the entire other side. So y is now by itself. Now this one, 2 over negative 4. 4 doesn't fit into 2. But positive over negative is negative. And the fraction 2 over 4, if you have your calculator and you're not sure, you can type in 2ab over c4, enter, and it'll simplify that fraction for you. But 2/4 is 1/2. So positive over negative is negative, and 2 over 4 is 1/2. So I have 1/2, negative 1/2 x, and then negative 4 over negative 4. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 is plus 1. The number in front of, the number in front of x is my slope. The number at the end is my y-intercept. Okay, then from here, we're gonna go to our graph and begin on the y-axis at that number. So I'm gonna go to 1 on the y-axis. Okay, going to 1 on the y-axis, and then my slope. When you have a negative fraction, you can put the negative with the top or the bottom. It makes no difference. You just have to make a decision. So if I leave the negative on the bottom and I decide to, starting off at this green dot, rise 1, that's up 1, run -2, I'm right there. But what would happen if instead I decided to put the negative on the top? It's fine, but let's look at the dot. I'm still gonna begin at 1, but rise -1 like a helicopter, down 1, run 2, forwards 2. See how I end up with the same line? It won't matter. But just make sure that if the fraction that you have is negative, that you make the decision to either put the negative with the top or the bottom. Doesn't matter.